Okay, let's talk about Alzheimer's disease. There's actually 4 different dementias that Americans commonly get. Number 1, the most common one actually is vascular dementia. The same thing that causes a blocking of the arteries in your heart, block the arteries in your brain. It's called vascular dementia. And you don't get enough oxygen and food to your brain. There's nothing wrong with your brain. There's just enough oxygen and food going in there. You start forgetting things. And it's called vascular dementia. And then there's Korsakoff syndrome, which is a deficiency of a single vitamin. This was discovered in the late 1700s by a Japanese naval surgeon. So we always prepare for that one. And then there's Wernicke-Korsakoff. It's the same deficiency, that one vitamin, plus MS, multiple sclerosis mixed in with it. And then there's Alzheimer's disease. I've seen people with all 4 dementias. Alzheimer's tidal wave is feared. That's because there's 80 million baby boomers coming along. This came out in 2009. Alzheimer's on a relentless upward trajectory. Numbers look particularly grim for baby boomers because they're on egg beaters, egg white omelets, boneless skinless chicken breasts. And the worst possible thing is they took the statin drugs to lower their cholesterol. Talk about a perfect storm for making Alzheimer's disease. 3 lies in the same sentence. Only a doctor could do that. Alzheimer's is the only disease amongst the top 6 killers in the USA for which there's no prevention, cure, or treatment. That's all a lie. Okay, in 1992, the University of California, San Diego, and the Salk Institute came out with this study, and they said if you take somebody with advanced Alzheimer's disease, you give them a high dose of vitamin E, they'll get better. Now, this isn't some comic book stuff. This is a 10-year study from the Salk Institute and the University of California, San Diego Medical School. So I read this into my audio cassette tape. This is part of my audio cassette tape. I said, vitamin E can ease memory loss in Alzheimer's victims, which means it cannot be genetic. Because there's no genetic disease that you can even help any little bit by giving a vitamin or mineral. So if you can get some clinical improvement by giving them one vitamin that ain't genetic, that's simple stuff. That's 4th grade biology. Every medical association in every state in the United States went to their state attorney generals and had them send me a demand warrant, making me prove what I was saying was true. Otherwise, they're going to take my assets away and put me in jail. I don't know how they can put me in jail in 50 states, but cut me up, I guess. And so we had to send all 50 states a certified copy of that newspaper plus a copy of the CD. But they could say I was just reading that, and so that's the First Amendment thing. So all states except Arizona and Michigan dropped the charges. I had to go do kind of a pretrial hearing and everything in Michigan and Arizona, but the judge threw it out after they saw my presentation and everything. And so they had to pay my legal fees and transportation, and I love that part. Okay. Then in 2010, front cover story, U.S. News World Report, America's Best Nursing Homes, Aging Well, obviously marketing to the baby boomers. What science reveals about aging? Is your job killing you? Your first baby boomer's heart battle? But this is why I bought it. 7 habits to lower the risk of Alzheimer's disease. What does that tell you? It ain't genetic. If you can sleep 2 more hours a night, if you can walk around the block 2 more times, if you can eat a banana every week that you weren't doing, you can read a little bit more, read a book every month. Because one of the things they mentioned was read a book every month, reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. It ain't genetic. So right there it says, if it ain't genetic and you get it late in life, that means we can prevent it, and that means we can get rid of it. Amen. Remember, there's 4 different dementias, so I always like to treat for all 4. Well, 10 years after that first study I showed you with the vitamin E, Johns Hopkins released a study that they did in Cache County, that's C-A-C-H-E, not C-A-S-H, but C-A-C-H-E, Valley area, Utah. And this was the bottom of a small sea or lake thousands and thousands of years ago, and the mountains go all the way around it. This is laser flat. They didn't have to bulldoze it flat because it was just it's the bottom of a lake or inland sea, so it was just flat. 200 feet of topsoil in there, and there's no restaurants. I mean, these are very, very religious Mormons that live in there. They're all from a Scottish background. Everybody who moved into that valley came from Scotland. For some reason, they all converted to Mormonism, and they lived and ate, and they're all farmers, and they all ate the food. They wouldn't even go to a restaurant. They're very religious people. They're kind of like the equivalent to the Mormons of the Jewish kosher people are to the Jewish people, okay? The Orthodox Jewish people. They have a supplemental book to their holy book, tells them what to eat, what not to eat, just like the kosher Jewish people, Orthodox Jewish people have their stuff they're not supposed to eat and stuff they're supposed to eat. So that's what they did here. Well, Johns Hopkins, how many of you heard of Johns Hopkins? Baltimore, Maryland, very famous medical school. They sent a whole team of guys out there. They found 5,000 people in that valley over the age of 65. They divided them in half, and they gave half of them, 2,500 for 10 years, a vitamin supplement. The other half, they gave a dummy pill. Double-blind, randomized study, gold study from one of the top medical schools in America. They published it in 2004. And I'll bet your doctor didn't email you the results. If he didn't, you need to fire him. I guarantee you most of you would be firing your doctors. The first study in 1992 was just vitamin E. I was so excited about that. I said, they need to give them all 90. But instead, they just added vitamin C to it. We don't want to get too aggressive here. So he just added vitamin C. Make a long story short, they said people taking the vitamin C and E over the 10 years were 78% less likely to have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease than them that didn't. 78% reduction in risk by just adding 2 vitamins to their diet. Now, I guarantee it's more complicated than that because right now as we speak, in fact, I'm going to be meeting with these guys here in a couple of weeks. They've been doing an analysis of the soil for me in that valley because those 2 vitamins are a cofactor for some mineral or minerals in there. Right now, I'm giving everybody everything. So I know they're getting it all because they're getting everything, right? But I guarantee there's some minerals in there that are very high. But at any rate, if you take everything, you're going to get everything, right? But just think about it. You can reduce your risk by 78% just with supplementation. Same people, they're homogenous, same cultural background, they're all from Scotland, they're all farmers, they all live in the same valley, they're all the same religion, they all eat the same things, all avoid the same things. I mean, it's like laboratory rats, they're about as homogenous as you can get. Why did medical school go there? Because you can't, in Baltimore, Maryland, you can't find 2 people who are like, let alone 5,000. That was pretty smart on their part, wasn't it? So anytime your doctor says it's genetic and there's no way to prevent it or cure it, you're saying, liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay. Well, 4 years ago, I believe it was, my sister, he's from Greensboro and she was from Charlotte, and she's one of our associates, one of our distributors, and she called me 4 years ago and said, my brother was diagnosed 8 years before she called me, and said, which is 12 years ago now, and said, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and the doctor says genetic, and I might as well get my reservation in his nursing home right now, so I'll be sure to have a space when the time came, blah, blah, blah. And it's scaring me. And so I took him to neurological clinics. I even went to the medical school here in North Carolina and had the head of the Department of Neurology examine him, and he agreed with the primary care physician that it was Alzheimer's disease. And when she called me 4 years ago, he had lost his memory completely. He was unable to communicate with grunts or barks or blinks or raising a finger or anything. He could not communicate anyway. We couldn't tell if he was, I never saw him. This is over the phone. He would lay on the floor and curl up in a fetal position. So at any rate, what I did for him was say, okay, look, I'm going to treat him for all 4 dementias because we're kind of late in the game here, right? I said, well, thank you for calling me in early on the case, right? He's in a hospice. He's being fed with a G-tube, so you got to get him off the Ensure because Ensure is made 60% by volume corn oil. Trans fatty acids, the worst possible thing for a normal brain, let alone anybody with any brain disease like Parkinson's disease, MS, Lou Gehrig's disease, or any dementias. No Ensure. So, okay, we need you to get your brother off of Ensure. We have that shake we told you about, the slender effects, but if we just make it with water, he's going to lose weight. And what I want you to do is make it with heavy whipping cream because I want to rebuild his brain. And with heavy whipping cream, I want you to put 4 eggs in it, and I want him to have 2 servings of that a day through his G-tube. You have to whip it up real fine, put it through the G-tube. And then I want him to have 4 more eggs. I'm going to have a total of 12 eggs a day because I'm calculating how much cholesterol I'm giving him. And rebuild the brain in case he does have Alzheimer's disease, right? Not cooked, but raw. Then I want him to have 2 healthy heart and brain packs per month, but I want him to have 4 half doses a day, split out during the day. Mix it with milk, get it through the G-tube. That's how you're going to get the other 4 eggs in there. Then, in case it's vascular dementia, I want him to take 3 of the Ultimate Daily tablets 3 times a day, grind them up, put them in with that milk and the other stuff, and put them through the G-tube because it actually dilates arteries and improves blood flow. Then I want him to take 3 of our de-stress capsules 3 times a day. That's 3 bottles a month. Because it has that one vitamin that's deficient when you have Korsakoff syndrome and Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. He got 28,000 times the minimum daily requirement of that one. Then I want him to have selenium. I want him to have 9 of our selenium a day, 3 at breakfast, 3 at lunch, 3 at dinner. That's 3 bottles a month in case he has Wernicke-Korsakoffs. So I got rid of the plaque in his brain from the MS. Then I need him to take 12 of our Smart FX a day. These are DHAs and EPAs, which are the raw materials for the brain to make neurotransmitters for memory and cognition, problem solving and memory. I'm going to have 12 of those a day. You have to puncture a little soft gel capsule, squeeze that in through the G-tube. She took a 6-month leave of absence because the technicians and the doctors at the hospice wouldn't do it. She said, I'm going to give him the best shot I can. I'm going to take 6 months off of work and do it. Now, she calls me a week later. I told her to call me every 2 weeks and give me kind of a progress report because this is under a controlled situation. She personally was going to do it every day, so I had faith she was going to do it. So she calls me on the radio, and the producer says, Doc, there's this lady screaming about her brother with Alzheimer's disease. Well, it's a week. Maybe something terrible has happened. Put her on. I'm going to quote her exactly, so bear with me. It's very emotional for me. Okay, here we go. So be prepared. And she said to me, quoting her now, he's cured! In 1 week's time, he got dressed and walked out. Did not have Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease would take me 9 to 12 months to reverse, but he had Korsakoff syndrome, which is curable in a week. It's a simple deficiency of a single vitamin. Remember I told you I gave him 28,000 times the minimum daily requirement of that vitamin? because she gave me little signals to make me think it was more likely Korsakoff syndrome than Alzheimer's disease. So I kind of hedged bet on that one, and it worked. I do this 1,000 times a year now. Very simple. It's called Korsakoff syndrome. The same formula works for Parkinson's disease, MS, and Lou Gehrig's disease. I have many, many wealthy, billionaires that we've reversed their terminal Parkinson's disease in 3 months. They went from being weeks away from death to 3 months later to perfectly normal. Okay? Parkinson's disease. Same formula.
Definitely get yourself a copy of Dr. Wallach's cookbook. This is basically a textbook about how to cook without the bad foods, particularly oil and gluten. This is 300 pages stuffed full of recipes without the bad foods that they're usually made from. And of course, make sure to check out our food page, Notice Foods, that's on YouTube, and at Notice Foods on Instagram. We have a lot of content up there teaching you how to cook without the bad foods that Dr. Wallach describes, and Dr. Glidden's 12 bad foods, all of that, all of the rules that you need to know. And we have experienced chefs and bakers who will answer the questions in those inboxes. My newest book, Everything You Should Know About Healthy Blood Sugar, goes into a lot of detail about one of the most complicated things we get asked about, which is healthy blood sugar. This covers all of the blood sugar problems you know about, including type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and other problems you might not know were blood sugar problems, including behavioral problems, sleep problems, and cardiovascular problems. This book also goes into a lot of detail on digestion and how primitive people and animals actually acquire the nutrients that they need for healthy blood sugar in their natural environment. And definitely check out my book, Fake Diseases. It covers all of the major topics that come up, like birth defects, blood sugar problems, bone and joint problems, cancer, autoimmune problems, and more. And it's on Amazon for just $9.99. And I've also published a book in response to some of Dr. Wallach's criticisms, including the major articles that have been written against him on the internet. So if you are a Dr. Wallach fan or a longevity distributor, I definitely recommend having this book in your toolkit. And all of my books, audiobooks, and links are available on my website, noticebooks.org.